Here's a problem where we're starting out with 4 terms. And when we have 4 terms, we usually like to look at it and say, hey, let's see if we can group them in pairs, right? And I see some similarities here, so that could be really good. So I'm going to group these in pairs, and I'm looking at this first pair, and I see b squared minus x squared. Hey, that is a difference of 2 squares, right? So I can write that out. That's cool. And I bring down my plus sign. And then if I factor these, I get a factor out of 4, x plus 1. Awesome. Now I need to keep going, right? If I can. So I'm going to look and say, well, I'm looking for a common factor. One of these, ideally, is the same as this. And I look, and they're not. That's problematic. So that didn't work. And I can't go any further. I'm kind of stuck. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start again. So here I've written the problem out again, and I'm going to start again and say, okay, well, grouping by 2's didn't help me. So maybe I want to group by 3's, and I want to look at these 4 and say, are there 3 that kind of look like they're related to each other, something I've seen before? Or more importantly, another way to look at it is to ask myself, which of these 4 is kind of the odd man out? Because one of them's kind of an odd man out. So looking at these, this is kind of the odd man out, right? This is the one that's a little different from all the rest, doesn't look like it would go with it. So I'm going to bring that down, and I'm going to look at these 3 and ask myself, what do I need to do? Can I factor them as a group? I'm looking at a trinomial. I've got an x squared, I've got an x, and a number. But my x squared is negative, and that's a problem, right? Because you can't square root a negative. So what can I do? Well, what I'm going to do is I can factor out a -1, and if I do that, then these 3 terms will all change sign, so I'm going to end up with positive x squared minus 4x minus 4. Take a look at that and make sure that makes sense to you. Right? Because if I were to go back and if I were to distribute -1 times x squared, I'd get negative x squared. -1 times -4x would give me positive 4x. And -1 times -4 would give me positive 4. So this means the same thing as the line above it. The exact same thing. All right? So I have that to work with now. And I'm going to look at this, and I see that in this trinomial, I can factor, this is a perfect square, because I can take the square root of x squared and the square root of 4, right? But I have a challenge here where this negative, this 4 would have to be positive, right? Because if I had a -2 and a -2, they would multiply to make positive 4. Or if I had positive 2's, they would multiply to make positive 4 here as well, right? So I've gone back. I'm going to go back and look at the problem, make sure I copied the problem right. This is a really good thing for you guys to see me make this mistake. We need to copy the problem accurately. So I've just looked at it, and this is what the problem is supposed to be. So I goofed. And I could have gone back and erased that and pretended it didn't happen, but I thought it was good to show you because it happens to me too. All right? So we're going to use the same strategy though, because the strategy is good. The same strategy is good, where I'm going to factor out a -1, and I'm going to get -4, a positive 4x, positive 4, miss I. Okay. Plus 4x plus 4. And I still have my b squared minus up front here, right? Now, this makes more sense, right? X plus 2, x plus 2, -1 in front, b squared minus. And this x plus 2 is in essence a square, right? We have x plus 2, the quantity squared. So this is the same thing as b squared minus x plus 2, the quantity squared. This is a difference of 2 squares. Do you see that? Right? This is like a squared minus b squared, right? Or x squared minus y squared. we have a difference means subtraction, of 2 squares here. So I can factor that. So I've got the square root of b squared is b, and the square root of x plus 2, the quantity squared, is x plus 2. But remember, with a difference of 2 squares, our model is, let's say I was talking about x squared minus y squared, I have x plus y and x minus y, right? So I'm going to put in plus and minus. So my final answer is b plus x plus 2 times b minus x plus 2. That's it. That's my answer. All right? I hope seeing me goof makes you feel better about when you goof sometimes too. Happens to all of us. But this is our problem right here.